Good evening. Welcome, race fans here. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to round 6 of the MC Motorsport GT3 Championship here at the majestic Road America circuit. We're in for a thrilling race here tonight where every corner counts and every overtake could make the difference. It is a high-speed challenging, one of the longest tracks on the calendar here besides the Nürburgring and the Spa. Francorchamps circuit that we have. It is Road America. Stay with us as the drama unfolds and the battle for victory heats up. This is motorsports at its finest in the land of the free in the United States of America. Yes, we are here at Road America. It is a legendary circuit located near Earnhardt Lake in Wisconsin, USA, known for its picturesque settings and challenging layouts. It has become a favorite amongst drivers and fans alike since its inception in the 1950s. The track stretches over 4 miles, 6.5 kilometers through rolling hills and dense forest, providing a unique blend of high-speed straights and technical corners. It's famous for its long straights where cars can reach an incredible speeds balanced by its demanding turns that test both driver skills and the car performance. One of the standout features of Road America is its natural terrain, which adds the difficulty of the charm of the circuit. The track has 14 corners laid out here, 6.14 kilometer lap time, 325 meters above the sea level. And yes, it is some very nice, pleasant conditions here with the air temp at 20 degrees Celsius. It would be, if it was Fahrenheit, it would be in the ice cold, and the track would be covered in ice, and it would be absolutely horrible to drive around. The track temp is about 23 degrees, so very cool, but it is a very dry feeling and ambient temperature that we have at the moment. With our commentary group, myself, I'm Nicholas Patasso. Joining alongside me, is the man that is providing us with this beautiful presented stream here at MC Motorsport, powered by MCSR, which is Jared Cole. So welcome along, Jared, and I'm very excited for this event. It's one of my first times I've actually seen Road America on the game of iRacing, so obviously you might have had a bit of experience around this track. So what can you tell us about the insights of this 6.4 kilometer circuit?
Look, Nick, good to be back. Good to be joining you this week, and pleasure to have you back on the commentary team after last week's absence. You were sorely missed, mate. Look, honestly, not much experience with Road America myself. It's a new one to me, but certainly one that's known as a pretty challenging circuit. What I'm really looking forward to tonight is, again, we saw last week the track temps were pretty low, which made for some really interesting opening laps as everyone battled to get to grips with the cold tyres. So I'm expecting more of the same, particularly with some of the switchback corners that we do have to deal with on this track. It'll certainly prove difficult until the pack thins out a couple of laps in. So I've got my finger over the replay button ready to catch as many of those as we can, because I suspect there'll be a few incidents tonight.
Absolutely, with a very fast-flowing circuit it is, as we've said. It's covered in quite a lot of straights there, with a couple of few major braking zones, obviously going into turns 1, turn 3, turn 5, which is a very sharp entry and exit where track limits is off for us here tonight, so the drivers will be utilizing the track limits as much as they can to get themselves a good run out of turn 5 as they go up towards the forest into turn 6. Then we get into the carousel of turns 8, 9 and 10 before we fly past the kink. A little bit of a lift off with these cars. I'm not so sure if they go flat through turn 11, but we'll find out when we go jumping on board with a few drivers. And then the whole back section of the track, the Canada corner, which finally leads to turn 14, which is the Bill Mitchell bend, and it's going to be setting us up for, well, we'll have to wait and see what the lap times are setting. So I'm not so sure about you, Jared, but obviously, whether you've seen these guys done their practice sessions earlier, what are the rough lap times that we're going to be looking for? You know, for pole, for race pace. What is our evaluation here tonight?
Yeah, look, what we're probably expecting to see is anything from the mid 2s up to 2:10 as a lap time. We're starting to see a few of the qualifying times come through here. Practice, we saw a pretty tight top end of the pack, all sitting in that 2 minutes 4, 2 minutes 5 second sort of time slot. So there's not a lot from front of the field to the back. with some of the slowest times still under 2 minutes 10. So expecting it to be a much closer race than we've seen in a couple of the previous weeks where we had a bit more spread on the qualifying times. But look, the usual suspects probably going to be sticking their noses out in front. I'm expecting to see good showings from Alex Wilson, from Miles Bond, and from Mitch Curry. And then probably a few of the other names that we've come to know over the last few rounds as well, putting in their best efforts as we go through qualifying.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of, Liz, we might be able to grab some details about the last round that we had for round 5 for the MC Motorsport GT3 Championship. The championship order stands as they are. Miles Bond and the Ferrari 296 GT3 leads the way on 761. Very close, followed behind by Mitchell Curry in his Porsche 911. Then we have Matthew Carrick joining us on 692, so it hasn't just got into the 700 barrier yet, so still in contention, but still hanging on to a top 3, but is very closely followed behind by Roberto Machetti, Alan Dawson, not too far back as well, Alexander Wilson in 6th, Joshua Van Trek in 7th, and then Scott Stevens rounding up the top 8. So very close quarters here in round 6 of this championship, so still a long way to go. I think we're well past the halfway mark of this championship, so we're getting ourselves right towards the pointy end of this championship. And we know, as from what I've heard in the paddock, we know that Miles Bond very a strong driver when it comes to his Ferrari 296, but we also know that from what we've seen for the past few rounds, we've seen Mitchell Curry throw that Porsche around like crazy and try to get himself ahead of his rival in Miles Bond and Matthew. So we'll be looking out to see some very good lap times here as we have our qualifying underway. We can definitely tell you it's one of the Porsches up front, but at this current stage it's not the one that you're thinking of. It's going to be Alexander Wilson, so the man in 6th place in the championship, currently on provisional pole position, sitting in a very nice handy P1 at the moment, 0.1 just ahead of Joshua Van Trek in 2nd place. Then we have our championship leader and the 2nd place man, Miles Bond, and Mitchell Curry 3rd and 4th place. So the timing sectors are still lighting up. It's not the end of qualifying just yet. We've just got under 3 minutes to go until the end of the session. So in theory, you would say, Jared, this is going to be the last couple of clutch laps that all these drivers need to get, especially for those that are contending for this championship.
Absolutely is, and look, I'm really excited to see some different names up the top of that qualifying tree. It's almost a reverse order of our championship standings, which, when you consider there's a good 200 points on offer if you manage to take out both races, this top 8 does not look too far apart at all. Very, very interesting to see whether Miles Bond can find the pace that he's been known for so far in this series. And look, I did think for a moment there that we were going to be without Matthew Carrick tonight, but it does look like he's managed to join us and has set a pretty reasonable time right off the bat. So whether he's been sandbagging a bit there and he's decided to just jump in late and have a few extra minutes for dinner beforehand, I don't know. But there's really not much in it, and certainly the top 2 between Miles and Mitchell, I think last week we were something like 70 odd points apart. That's now down to 30, so it'll be very, very interesting to see what happens this week. I sincerely hope that nobody's hopes are dashed by any incidents that we do see in tonight's racing. If we can get a couple of clean races in, I'd be very, very happy indeed.
Absolutely, and we have seen a few of our timing screens go through. We're seeing a lot of purples, a lot of greens in this last session and this last part of the section. Just over a minute to go. We're seeing a couple of names jump up the order. Alan Dawson in the Audi R8. So this is one that we're talking off the cameras here, ladies and gentlemen, that we're looking at the Audi R8's LMS GT3 Evo, the second version of the GT3 Audi R8. So sitting very nicely. Looks to be a very strong contender for a potential win and potential podium, but with Alan Dawson getting himself in a nice handy position to hold on to P3 or get himself up into P3 at this moment. The second Audi in Dean Reddit is in 7th place at 303, so he's still running even on his lap times, but there's not really too many improvements now. We're kind of seeing the numbers fluctuating between red and purple and a bit of green, but there's not really lighting up the timing screens at the moment. As we get towards the end of the qualifying, we've got just 15 seconds to go. There are a few drivers that we will keep our eyes on the timing screens. We've got Roberto Machetti He's on quite a decent lap. He looks like he's just made a mistake on one of his sections there. He's losing time massively. Scott Stevens in the Porsche 911 GT3. He's actually looks like he was setting a good lap time, but it looks like this qualifying session has ended and the checkered flag has been waved, and we do have our grid for tonight for the first race. A 40-minute session from lights to flag, a 40-minute quick enduro. And it's all about saving. It's all about trying to get yourselves right in that front position and getting yourselves ahead of your rival in this 6.4 kilometer circuit. But if we have our starting grid here, it has been provided to us. Alexander Wilson in the Porsche 911 GT3 992. Car 24 leading away on pole position. Joshua Van Trek and the BMW GT3 runs out in P2. Alan Dawson in the Audi R8. Miles Bond in the Ferrari leading, having four manufacturers inside the top four. Just shows the parity and the balance of performance that these cars have is absolutely incredible and so tight that it can be any driver that can win this race. Mitch Curry in 5th place and Jacob Hughes rounds up in 6th place. As we go down the order, we have Dean Reddit in the Audi R8, the second of the Audi RS. So watch out for the 303 to come flying through the pack. Nathan Bowman in the 911 as well, running up in 8th place. 9th and 10th rounds up the last few Porsches in Scott Stevens and Roberto Machetti. So we'll be looking to see Roberto try and see if he can get himself up in a few more positions so he can get himself up towards the pointy end of this championship. Simon Lata in the Chevrolet Corvette, so it's a homecoming for the Chevrolet Corvette. Simon Lata in 11th, and then we have Matthew Carrick, the man in 3rd place in the championship, down in 12th, so he's got a lot of work to do. John Schultz, and we have Carl Stevens, both in the Ford Mustangs, as well as Ryan Palmer in 15th place in the Ford Mustang as well, representing a bit of a different look there. There's a bit of a Holden / Ford crossover there. We'll be calling it a whole Ford most of the time throughout this stream. And then we go rounding up to the rest of the grid. We have Graham Adui in 19th, Stephen Lawrence in 20th, and then we have our two pace cars, or one of our pace cars down the back there. Hayden Norris, Charlie McMillan, as we get ourselves ready for what is going to be an awesome race. We have our 5 red lights. The revs are rising here for round 6 here at America, and with green flag. It's a very even start there by all of our drivers right up towards the pointy end of this race as they're coming down, barreling into turn 1. It's going to be Miles Bond that swoops around the outside, and he runs the car very wide on the exit of turn 1, and that's a huge costly mistake for the championship leader to run it all the way around the outside. Didn't have the grip to hold it to maintain the line. He goes from P2 all the way down to P11 outside the top 10. That is a very horrible start there for Miles Bond. But coming down towards turn 5 here, going to be one of the crucial zones of trying to spot your braking markers. Don't over brake yourself. Don't think about getting on the brakes too late, because there's a big chance you can cause a lot of carnage there up towards the hill and over the rise at turn 6. Then the crossover to turn 7. We have some contact. There's the leader of this race as well. So the BMW has dropped down the order, so everyone is flying off the radar. The first 2 drivers that were starting up in 1st and 2nd place are now well down the order. What a horrible start by the front 2 runners. And we have Alexander Wilson, the man that started on pole position, didn't have the best start, but he's now back up into P1, followed by Jacob Hughes, Alan Dawson. Mitchell Curry has got himself some very good positions there to keep himself ahead of his rival, Miles Bond, who's now recovered himself back up into position 8. They're now coming down to turns 12 right now, Canada corner. Very fast, going side by side. It's very risky to go side by side with these cars, but these guys are doing absolutely beautiful to maintain the pace of what they're doing. It's absolutely beautiful. As they come around there, little bit of contact with a couple of drivers. Got to be careful. Not too much going on there, but it looks very nicely even. And everyone looks to be having a very good time on this opening lap here. A little bit of biff and barge. Miles Bond as he throws it on the inside of turn 14. Does he get the move done? He has. He goes back up into he stays in position 8, so he still maintains it. But wow, what an incredible start that was. Lap 2 already, and it's Alexander Wilson and the Porsche, led by following Jacob Hughes right behind him in second place, and Alan Dawson in the Audi in third place. So Jared, my goodness, what a start that was. The two contenders of this race all barreling out within the first few span of the
And we've
corners.
just lost a couple more at the back there as well. Geez, that looked like, was that Hayden Kalman? I think that might have got involved there. Matthew Carrick as well. Roberto Machete just dropping off the back after making contact. That's, look, we saw it last week and we've seen it again this week. Those cold tyres absolutely playing their part in making for a very, very hairy first lap as everyone battles for position but also struggles to find any kind of traction. They're coming off the track all over the place. We've got Kyle Stevens, who's just lost it in the background there as well. There's probably a few there that we'll go back and have a look at as they all start to settle into this race. But geez, what a start, eh?
Oh, absolutely. So the two contenders battling for P3, or that was in third and fourth place going into this round, Matthew Carrick and Roberto Machete, they're well outside the top 20. Well, Matthew Carrick in 20th, and Roberto Machete has actually demoted himself down to position 22. So the horror start for those two drivers is going from bad to worse, unfortunately for them. But yeah, I mean, we did say earlier in the broadcast, the track temperature is only 23 degrees. It's not Fahrenheit, it's degrees Celsius. So yeah, it's a very, very cold track. So like I said, if it was on Fahrenheit, I think these guys would be wanting to run on ice tires and probably on snow tires rather than actual racing slicks. So they're doing themselves very well. It's all about trying to phase those tires in. Not so sure how it really works in the iRacing world. Obviously, you do have to massage tires onto the track, and you have to massage them in a way to get them up to temperature as quickly as you can. So how long would that roughly take, Jared, in the case if you jump in a Porsche, as we've seen with Alexander Wilson leading the pack?
Yeah, look, if you manage to hold it together and not come off the track at full race noise, then you'd expect to start seeing some really good temps in the tyres as you come into lap 2 and 3. You'll start to really hit your peak grip temps. But of course, it does require staying on the track long enough for that to happen. So it's a fine balance, and you'll probably find that some of these guys have decided to take it a little easier, and so haven't made up as many positions as some while they do get those temps in. But as it stands at the moment, people like Jacob Hughes we've got on screen at the moment found himself up 3 positions simply by holding it together through that first lap. And it's always the way in iRacing. If you can just survive turn 1, you're usually pretty well off to a good start.
Yeah, absolutely. And the telemetry I'm getting here is absolutely awesome. Here we can see the winners and losers. So as you just mentioned, Jacob Hughes is up 3 positions. Another big winner from that is Stefan Lawrence inside the top 10 in the Porsche 911. So he's absolutely flying through. He's watching all the chaos unfold ahead of him. He's just plucking the drivers like it's nothing, and he's coming through the pack. Even John Schultz as well. He's actually made a few positions in the Ford Mustang. So a little bit of a nice little rivalry. Just ahead of him is Simon Lata in the Chevrolet Corvette. So a little bit of a Corvette versus Mustang here in the land of the free. But rounding up in 9th and 10th place is John Schultz and Stefan Lawrence. And then unfortunately, some of the biggest losers that we've just mentioned there, Joshua Van Trek, who was one of the key contenders, was about 6th place in the championship. And we saw him loop it at the top of the hill at turn 6. A very unfortunate end for his race. He's got a lot of work to do to catch up, as well as Roberto Machete. I think is probably one of the biggest losers out of all of that, unfortunately, in regards to the championship. So not the best start they want, but it's still 33 and 3/4 of the race to go. Anything can happen, as we've seen in the opening couple of laps. There's a lot of things that can happen as well.
Yeah, look, we might just take a quick look back at some of those early incidents, I think. Starting with Roberto Machete's at the beginning of the race there.
Absolutely. So we have a look about Roberto Machete, and that was literally at the exit of turn 1, and more cause and more carnage going on the exit of turn 1 into turn 2. Absolutely very unlucky there for some of the unlucky bystanders. All Porsches, unfortunately, so it must be a mating ritual for all the Porsches to crash at the exit of turn 1. But unfortunately for the worst that copped it was Roberto Machete. So I'm pretty sure, most likely, he's got a lot of damage on his car, and he's probably negotiating that until he gets to his pit cycle. As we see the start of the race there, we have Brian East down the back there. looks like he must have had a bit of a slow start as well. He's right down the back there, so obviously he didn't qualify for this race, or probably just had a poor qualifying. But look, he's just sitting back. He's sitting comfy. He doesn't want to get involved in the turn 1, lap 1 carnage. As he slowly negotiates turn 1, he can just see the carnage unfold ahead of him. But there's not too much that's going on at the moment there, so it looks like he's doing all right. And he's actually moved up a few positions inside the top 15.
Unfortunately for Brian, a little later on, he's found himself on the tail end of that poor traction and just lost a bit of time. He's very lucky to not lose more through that high-speed section of the track there. Only gives up the 1 position and manages to keep it on going.
Yeah, he just loses that position to Ryan Palmer ahead of him in the Ford Mustang, repping the old HRT livery that's gone onto a Ford Mustang. So very controversial here. Very controversial to see that on a Ford Mustang, but hey, you know, it's for the fun of it. So the whole foot is doing very well there, up into those few positions. But now we're keeping our eyes on Miles Bond, who's actually dropped down. Actually, so he's actually dropped. He was from 8th from the start of the race. It was actually as high as P2 going into turn 1. He dropped down to P8, but now he's actually dropped down to P10. So something must have happened on one of his previous laps there. So he's a 206.1 on his previous lap versus the fastest lap and the last lap set by Alexander Wilson, which was 204.441, which is the fastest lap of the race so far on lap 5 of this 40-minute race. So struggling a little bit, maybe trying to warm those tires up a little bit more. Maybe he's just trying to nurture them just a little bit. Maybe just wait for the guys ahead of him just to make a mistake, and then he can come pouncing through. And we can see there, John is really struggling on the exit there, getting the traction down on turn 3. And Miles just swings on by, flies by with the Ferrari 296 and gets himself up into P9. So very nicely done there. Bit of patience, but I think it's for him. He's just really slowly getting that car to his liking. As we look up towards the front pack here, we have Mitchell Curry running up in 5th place as well. So he's also lost a couple of positions from the opening sequence. So he's right behind Scott Stevens. I think Scott Stevens is actually the one that's on the move as well. He's up 5 positions as well, from 9th to P4. So he's absolutely flying as well in that Porsche. So he's doing really well. The lead Porsche, Alexander Wilson, Jacob Hughes in 3rd. Scott Stevens is a man on a charge. He's actually gapped Mitchell Curry by a few car lanes over the span of a few corners. So the pace that he's got, he's definitely switched those tyres on. And the gap and the drivers ahead of him, they're not too far. They're only about 2.8 seconds behind. He's actually 2.8 seconds behind Jacob Hughes. So anything can happen in this next 30 minutes.
And it's almost an all Porsche front end of the pack at this point. If it wasn't for Alan Dawson up in 2nd, we'd be looking at 1st to 5th all Porsche 911s. So I've got to ask whether it's a balance and performance issue that iRacing need to take a look at again at the end of this season, or whether these guys are just that in tune with their cars. They're certainly popular in this championship that we've seen so far.
Well, I believe it's a fixed setup that all the drivers are running in this series. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. So we're running an all fixed setup for MCSR's first GT3 Championship. So there's no real tweaking that's happened here to get these guys any extra pace. But of course, there is the underlying setup that is provided by iRacing that they're all running. So those are often tweaked at the end of every season to try and just level out the performance between the cars in the same class. So look, yeah, whether we're actually seeing the output of that, or these guys are just that good in these Porsches, which are notoriously a difficult car to control. Yeah, it's anyone's guess at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. So the MR nature of the Porsche 992 is really working its magic around the circuit here. So obviously it's more of a bit of an MR fest as well, with the mid-engine rear-wheel drive machinery in both the Porsche 911 or the 992 and the Audi R8s, all occupying literally all the way up from P1 down to P7. So it's very dominant by the mid-engine rear-wheel drive cars. And then we have our first front-engine rear-wheel drive in the Chevrolet Corvette in 8th place, with Simon Lanta rounding up in position 8. So these drivers are doing very nicely. So like you said, they look to be in tune with the cars, they look to be in tune with the track, and they're just slowly getting into this phase where they're starting to pull away by quite some margin over Simon Lata in the Corvette, and he's actually starting to pull away a lot on Miles Bond as well. So the gaps are not really close. This is the only close battle pack and the battle pack for P2. This looks to be the only really intense battles that we're going to be seeing over the next few phases before they make their first pit stops at the end of the stint. But at the end of the 27th, as we come up towards the end of the 27th minute, still no changes to the orders there. So we've still got Alexander Wilson, Alan Dawson, Jacob Hughes in the top three. Scott Stevens, Mitchell Curry, Nathan Bozeman, and Dean Reddit 7th. And then, as we saw there, Simon Lata, you can see there right in the background in that Corvette in 8th place.
It looks like Mitchell Curry's found himself another gear. They had a big look up the inside of Scott Stevens coming down the main straight. So I'm wondering if maybe he's just got a bit more pace around that second half of the circuit. It's always interesting. You do start to see, particularly in these fixed setup races, with drivers who are in the same model of car, you start to see the real difference in their skill levels and where their strengths lie, when they start to make up or lose time unexpectedly like that. It's all down to the driver's ability with that particular type of racetrack. So one to watch really closely here. We've got a really good battle going on. I'm just going to take us forward a bit. We'd better check in on Alex Wilson out front because he's having his lead chipped away at just a little here by Alan Dawson, who was out to about 3 seconds at one point. But with Alan and Jacob coming up close.
So he's definitely on a bit of an oily rag here at the moment. He's losing time to Alan Dawson in the outer area, and he's also bringing Jacob Hughes with him. So in theory, those two have been working together. You can see there the gap is dropping quite a fair bit there. It was literally about a second when they got to turn 12 through Canada Corner as they come towards turn 13, and then up into 14 as they lead on to the pit straight with just less than 25 and a half minutes to go. But yeah, he's leaking a little bit of oil here, so he must be just maybe use those tires up pretty early. He must have just run a little bit too hard very early in the race. He just needs to kind of back off a little bit, maybe cool them down, maybe just run to a number, and then we'll just see what his race pace is going to be like, because his last lap was a 2:05.2. Alan Dawson right behind is a 2:05.1. Jacob with a 2:05.5, and then right behind there Scott Stevens, the man on the charge, 2:05.2. So very close amongst those drivers, and we can see there Scott Stevens right in the background there with the fluorescent, with the aqua and white nose cone of that Porsche 911. He's starting to creep up a little bit, but yeah, Alexander's just losing a little bit of time in this phase of the race.
Tell you what, we talk about quick laps coming through. A lot of 2:05s on that one. One who's on an absolute charge as we take a look back at Miles Bond again, running at 2:04.9 on that last lap. So he is not slowing down for anyone. He wants to try and make up all of those places that he lost early on. He's recovered a bit now. He's down to only 5 spots from where he started. But if he keeps up this kind of pace for the next 24 minutes, there's a good chance we'll see him back at the top end. It will be really interesting to see the pit strategies come into play here. They don't often end up in too much of a difference in the on-track time, but if there are some drivers here that are perhaps trying to save a little bit of fuel, then they may just end up a little quicker with the lighter load in the second half of the race. So really interesting to see. I can tell you Miles Bond is definitely not on a fuel-saving strategy with those sort of lap times. His best so far in the race at 2:04.7, so very, very consistently pushing this car right to the ragged edge as he tries to make up those spots.
Well, he's the second fastest on the track at the moment compared to fastest lap time. So the fastest lap time was set by Alexander Wilson, 2:04.4. He's on a 2:04.729. So the second fastest. We did see in that opening phase, even when he was in that mid-pack, he was running around about the 2:06s, high 2:07s. Just, I think maybe that was in the way of him just, that he did have that little bit of an incident at turn 1. As we take some really nice onboard pictures here with Miles Bond in that Ferrari 296 And beautiful sound this car makes as he plummets down into turn 1. But yeah, he's just was running a little bit of some lower numbers at a little bit of a slow time, just to maybe phase the tires into this sequence, and then that way he can start getting much better lap times and much more confidence with the grip that he's got in that Ferrari. And then again, he's just set himself another 2:04.9. So he was actually the fastest runner, except for Alan Dawson. So both Alan Dawson and Miles Bond were equal fastest on that lap just gone by. So it's absolutely incredible. We're on lap 9 of this race, and Miles Bond, even though he's got some work to do to try and catch up to the leader, 14 seconds to be precise, just over 14 seconds to be precise, but he's coming, and he's right on the back of Simon Larter as we go on board with Corvette drivers just looking at the rear bumper. And Miles Bond just thinks about throwing the car onto the inside, and the exit of turn 7, no, he doesn't get it right there just yet as it goes down through Hurry Downs into turn 8. He's got so much confidence on the brakes, does Miles. He looks like he's got a lot more grip compared to the Corvette, and he's trying to get his way through. He doesn't want to get held up too much because right behind him is Joshua Van Trek in the BMW. So both those two drivers, so Joshua Van Trek, he was another driver that was also in the fights for this early stages of the race, starting in position 2. So he's trying to work his way through. But here we go. Miles has got the slipstream. He's going to tuck right underneath into the entry of turn 12. Throws it down the inside through Canada corner and gets the move done nice and easy. That is Miles Bond up into position 8. And man, like I said, I've never seen him race before. I've never come into this world of iRacing, but I'm very impressed with Miles Bond. He is absolutely flying.
It feels like only about 3 laps ago we were talking about how Simon Larter had about a 3.5 second gap opened up on Miles. I can only assume that Miles' accelerator stuck it over going halfway down, because he is off like a rocket. He's already put half a second on Simon Larter here, which is just unreal.
And as we look at, and as I can see, as we see him starting to move on through, he's obviously dropped a lot of time now to the leaders. But one pack that hasn't lost sight is the battle pack for P1. So that gap has actually dropped down to less than a second now. Alan Dawson in the Audi R8 is closing on the leader, so he's only just dropped it down just then to under a second. He's hovering about the 9/10 races. He's actually dropped Jacob Hughes, so it must have been a mistake on Jacob Hughes' end, because he's dropped 3.6 behind, and he's actually given Alan Dawson the opportunity to try and take it for the lead of this race to Alexander Wilson. But as I said, we've got 20 minutes to go. We've already done half race distance. We're on lap 10 of this race. The pit stops do need to come into effect now, as the drivers are slowly starting to think about the strategies on how much fuel they put into the car and what tires they get onto their wagons. But the man that is on a charge that I think that wants to get the move done before the pit stops is Alan Dawson, and he's on a charge in the Audi R8.
Alex Wilson's going to have to be really watching his mirrors here, because Alan Dawson not far outside, picking up a bit of the slipstream off the back of that Porsche. And if there's one thing these GT3 cars will do nicely, they'll sit in that slipstream and really pick up speed down the straights. We've got a couple of really long straights to deal with here at Road America, and so Alex Wilson, I'm surprised to not see him playing a little more defensively at this point, just starting to move around on the straights and try and shake Alan Dawson off a little. Because he's got to be getting pretty close to picking up some of the aerodynamic benefit of following in behind Alex there.
Lost a little bit of time there. He's burnt a little bit of rubber on that, burned a little bit of oil on that last lap there. So actually it was a little bit faster than Alan Dawson on that last lap, so a 2:04.6 versus a 2:04.8, so he's just gained a couple of tenths on the man in position 2, but right behind them as well, as he's about to come across the start-finish line, we believe Miles Bond, he's on a 2:05.1, so he's not really closing up at the moment, as it looks like we have Joshua Van Trek has actually made the move now on Simon Larter as well, so the man that started position 2 in this race, he's actually moved up into P9, and he's gone through in his BMW. So the Corvette looks like it's struggling a little bit on the tyres, maybe a little bit on the fuel, just maybe not a little bit confident on some worn rubber. So he'll be looking to come into the pit lane very shortly, as we see the move that was already made on the entry of turn 1. So very nicely done there. But we could see there Simon Larter just didn't want to give that up. He thought he lost the position, but he said, no, I want to try again. but no, it is going to be Joshua Van Trek in position 9, takes the, bringing car 9 up into position 9, and now he's going to follow Miles Bond to try and get up inside that top 5. Very nice racing here, ladies and gentlemen, here at MC Motorsport, presented by MCSR. If you haven't already, join us on our Discord as well, so we have all of the access there. If you are in the iRacing world and you do love to get yourselves a hand on these GT3s, obviously for myself, I wish I was a man on iRacing as well. I would love to be throwing these cars around on a Monday night, but if you do, join us at MCSR and join the MC Motorsport group. We've got a great bunch of people on our Discord, and a great bunch of people that are very friendly, that are able to help you out on lap times and track guides if ever you need some. But it's great to see a great attendance here. Just well over 20 drivers here on this track, on this event tonight for round 6 here at Road America. Absolutely beautiful to see some great battles and contests for the win, or even to try and better your rival. But we have ourselves Dean Reddit in position 6, followed behind by Nathan Bowman. So here we go. We might be able to catch a little bit of this slipstream effect that you've been talking about, Jared. So obviously it looks very strong on iRacing, that it looks to be slowly closing up a little bit. But even though this is the longest part of the track, the longest straight on this track, a little bit of slipstream was caught there by Nathan Bowman, but not enough to try and pose a threat just yet.
Yeah, it's a real shame that he couldn't hold a little closer. He was right up behind Dean Reddit there for a good part of that last lap. Just lost a little bit of time through one of the corners and wasn't able to capitalise down the main straight. But I'll tell you what, it's setting up to be a pretty impressive little battle here as well. As Dean Reddit just gets a bit loose through there, and sure enough, Nathan Bowman makes the move and comes out with the place.
Apologies there, just lost a little bit of access on my microphone, but yeah, I was just saying that the camera shot that we had that was on Dean Reddit's car actually looked pretty cool. Looked like a stick with a GoPro on the end of it, and it was just pretty much holding the stick outside his driver's side cockpit. So just trying to give it a bit of an extra.
And special thanks to Dean for holding that GoPro out the window and only driving with one hand for us as well, hey?
Yeah, unfortunately it did cost him the position, though. He lost that position to Nathan Bowman, but he was charging through pretty quickly. It was Nathan Bowman, so we definitely saw it in those sequence of corners, especially turn 3, just getting the run that he got, and then all the way up towards turn 6. Unfortunately for Dean Reddit, just lost the rear end of the Audi, so his tyres looks like they're struggling with just 15 minutes to go until the end of this race. So we haven't seen any pit stoppers just yet. We'll be looking to find out who the first ones will be.
Yeah, looking back through the field, it looks as though Alex Wilson has actually made his first. So he's handed over the lead to Alan Dawson.
He has too. Yes, absolutely.
And so Alex has come through the pit and has found himself back in 13th. After the first pit stop.
There we go. Now we have more drivers coming into the pit lane right now. So obviously we did say, as Jared did mention, that we had Alexander Wilson come onto the pit lane a couple of laps ago, but now a couple of the key contenders have responded. So Alan Dawson in the Audi R8 has come into the pit lane. Mitchell Curry and Jacob Hughes has come into the pit lane as well. We'll find out and see where they end up at the end of this sequence of these sequence of pit stops. But obviously the first few drivers that are yet to make their pit stop, Nathan Bowman leads this race now on lap 13 with just less than 40 minutes to go. And Dean Reddit, Miles Bond, Simon Larter, John Schulz, Ryan Palmer inside the top 6, with Alexander Wilson, the first man that has made his pit stop, running in 7th place. And right behind him is Alan Dawson, but he's actually caught up quite a fair bit there. So it looks like he's actually closed a little bit. I think it's actually the same gap from what we saw between Alexander Wilson and Alan Dawson. As we can see, Alexander Wilson going for the inside move on Ryan Palmer, throws it down the inside. Ryan's not fighting that. He knows he's on a different strategy compared to Wilson, and he concedes that position of position 6. Ryan's just going to stick back in the Holford in 7th place. Alan Dawson looks like he's finding a little bit more grip on his car at the moment. So roughly about a second between Alexander Wilson and Alan Dawson for the win in the race 1 for round 6 here at Road America.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there, Nick. The gap between Alan and Alex Wilson, pretty much what we saw before Alex first went into the pits. So Alan's done a great job to not back off the throttle when he was out in front there, and has found himself back right where he wanted to be. As we take a look ahead, look, really, Miles Bond sitting up in third at the moment, and yet to make his pit stop. I think
He's still flying though.
he's still moving through though, isn't he? We might just jump up and have a quick look at that, because he's made up quite a few seconds on
He's coming to the pit lane
Dean
right
Reddit,
now.
so
So yeah,
all three of them are pitting in at once. I'll be very curious to see where Miles actually comes out of this, and whether he can get back up to speed pretty quickly.
yeah, it looks
after
like
the pit
everyone.
stop.
Yeah, it also looks like everyone has actually made their pit stop. So everyone's coming into that final sequence now with 12 minutes to go until the end of this race. Miles, Dean, Nathan, Simon have actually made their pit lanes. And then we see Alexander Wilson flying by. Alan Dawson's flown by as well. Jacob Hughes is all gone through. So where's he come out? He comes out just behind the Audi and Dean Reddit. But he's actually lost time in the pit lane. So that gap is actually opened up between himself and Dean Reddit. So that's an interesting call there. So maybe a little bit more too much fuel in the car, or maybe just a couple of repairs that he needs to do in the pit lane. I'm not so sure, but that gap between himself and Dean Reddit has opened up a lot, and he's actually lost the position to Joshua Van Trek, who looks like he's done the undercut on him, and he's actually moved himself up into P8. So these guys that were battling for the lead in the early part of the race, both coming into blows in their own way. Miles Bond running wide at turn 1. And Joshua Van Trek losing the car at the end of turn 6 before turn 7. It looks like it's roles reversed now. Joshua Van Trek ahead of Miles Bond, and that's going to be a huge blow for Miles Blow's championship.
Yeah, look, I think you're probably spot on there. Oh, we've just missed Simon Larder. Was that? No. He's just lost it there. That might have been one of our backrunners in Josh Harris, perhaps. That was off the track just there. I think that's probably spot on. I reckon Miles has had to do a few repairs from those couple earlier incidents, and it's just cost him that little bit more time in the pits. These guys do get one fast repair to use, so that would have only added probably 10 or 15 seconds to his overall pit time, but it makes all the difference when you're up against guys that can run as consistently quick as most of this top 10 can. So Miles has got it all to do if he does want to get back up front.
Yeah, absolutely. We also have to remind our viewers as well that this race sets the grid for a reverse top 10 race 2 20-minute sprint for the last race here for round 6 at Road America. So even if Miles finishes down in 9th place, yes, it's going to hurt him in the championship, in his championship fight with Mitchell Curry, who's running a very handy P5. He'll be starting right up towards the front in race 2. Obviously for not a lot of points in the second race, but he's got the track advantage over his championship rival, and as well as Joshua Van Trek will be right down the back there as well. But so far, the man that will be starting on the front row, Simon Larter and Miles Bond, still running in 9th and 10th place. But Miles has got a lot of work to do. He's actually closed up quite a fair bit on Joshua on that lap there. So he's just over 2 tenths behind him. So he's right in that slipstream as he goes into turn 3. We can see if we can go for an onboard lap with Miles Bond, see if he can get the move done going into turn 5. It looks very close underneath the rear wing of that BMW M4s, but it looks like the gap is still staggered a little bit. The slipstream is coming into effect now for Miles Bond. Can he throw it down the inside of turn 5? No, he doesn't. He's going to do the right thing. Just wait for it. It's less than 9 minutes to go, so plenty of racing to go. Probably another 4 more laps, I would say, around Road America for these cars with the lap pace they're doing. So lots of racing to go, and he's going to be waiting patiently to try and move himself up towards the front and try and get some more points next, and try and get some sort of points next to his name compared to where Mitchell Curry is sitting in position 5.
Tell you what, Miles and Josh are both using up all of the track and then some. We've got debris thrown up through just about every corner they've taken so far, as they're trying to use the absolute limits of this track and their car's traction. Don't know how good the grass is going to be for the acceleration out of the corner, though, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you jump on the grass, it feels like with iRacing, it feels like you guys can just jump on the grass and nothing happens to the car. If you throw us on our secondary platform on Gran Turismo 7 on the PlayStation 5, you jump on the grass and the car feels like absolute rubbish. But it looks like he's just run wide. Yeah, so it looks like Joshua just ran wide there, so that just backfires my case in point about grass work, obviously.
A little bit of grass is okay, maybe not that much, eh?
Absolutely, but he's done well. Miles Bond back up into P8. It looks like Joshua, I think he's dropped back so far. Would that be considered a track limit penalty? He had to slow down for the track limit?
Look, probably not. I don't think he, and I'm not super familiar with the outer track limits on that corner, but I think he's just lost the line and has had to back right off there. The current track limit penalties are actually really, really restrictive, and you'd probably see him drop about 10 seconds back for something like that. So I don't think that's what's happened. He's just found himself well offline there. Has a lot of work to do to try and hang on the back of Miles as he makes his way up towards Dean Reddit now.
Yeah, and as we want to try and see if we can go back to the battle pack at the front there, as we see Miles Bond closing up towards the battle pack for position 7. This battle pack has come alive, ladies and gentlemen. We've got less than 7 minutes to go, so 4 more laps of racing potentially at the end of this one, or 3 more laps until at the end of this one. It's going to be a close finish between these two. The Porsche 911, a GT3 992 versus the Audi R8 LMS Evo, all flying through there to turn 11 and then turn 11A before they get down towards Canada Corner and turn 12. It's going to be so close between these two. We could see Alan Dawson. We saw in the practice session, Jared, he was absolutely flying. That Audi R8 looks absolutely hooked around this track. Alexander Wilson is doing a really good job maintaining the gap and maintaining the consistency that he needs, but he just knows he can't shake off that black Audi R8 right behind him because he's coming and he's coming fast. He's got a nice run on the exit of turn 14 as they go up to this pit straight for the next time by. We're finishing lap 16, about to start lap 17 of this 40-minute enduro race. They're slowly closing up the gap there, but it looks like the Porsche's just got a little bit of the legs there on the straight there. I'm noticing on the timing deltas on my off screen, it looks like the Porsche just has a little bit more straight line speed than the Audi R8.
Yeah, and the Porsches in this GT3 Cup are certainly known for their ability to get out of the corner and accelerate away. The Audis, though, they're a bit of a dark horse. There's very few people that actually do drive them and know how to drive them well. And so I don't think most of the crew here would actually know quite what to expect from Alan Dawson, who's proving himself to be quite a master of the Audi over the past few rounds. Certainly knows where to put it and how to extract the most out of every corner as we see him close up, probably a full 2/10 through that couple of corners there, which is definitely going to put the pressure on Alex Wilson to maintain his mistake-free run, because I'll guarantee Alan is just biding his time and waiting for that mistake to happen before he slots on through and goes for the win.
Yeah, the 24 did run a little bit wide at turn 3 as well, so he just lost a little bit of traction on the exit of turn 3. That actually allowed Alan Dawson to get right up behind that rear wing of the Porsche 911, and as you said, there was roughly about a 2/10 gain all on that back straight going into turn 5, but he just throws the car at the kink there. That was an absolute send there by Alexander Wilson there. He's throwing the car to its absolute limits, and so is Alan Dawson. Some great racing for the battle for the lead of this race. They've definitely dropped Jacob Hughes. Scott Stevens is not too far behind him. He might be able to show some consistency and try and get himself up towards the front, try and get himself late on the podium, but unless he's starting to drop down, I think the podium must be set in stone. The only closest battle pack we have is Dean Reddit and Nathan Bowman, but this is the one that we want to focus on for the last 4 minutes. Alexander Wilson versus Alan Dawson for position 1 and position 2, but the battle is for the lead of this race and the victory in round 6 here at Road America as they go through turn 1 for the second, it's potentially going to be the second last time around here, around Road America. He's going to find some sort of miracle to try and get that Audi up the front here, and this is the corner that this Porsche struggled, and he looks like he's struggled again. So that's twice in a row that Alexander Wilson's got a poor run. He's going to have to go defensive, and the Audi's going to have to go around the outside. They're going to go side by side as they go through the moraine sweep on the exit of turn 4, the sweeping corner of turn 4 into turn 5, a heavy braking zone. Looks like Alexander Wilson's about to go a little bit deeper on the brakes there, holds the position, keeps P1, but that's the closest challenge that we've seen Alan Dawson on Alexander Wilson here. Some great racing here. He doesn't want to give up this position just yet. He doesn't want to give up the fight. He knows his weakness. He's found his weakness, Jared, at turn 3. He needs to stay with him for the next couple of laps because that corner is going to become crucial sooner or later.
Yeah, 100% is. And look, Alan's holding in, you know, that lap he was about 4 tenths behind as they came across the start finish. He's now holding about, 2-3 tenths back. And tell you what, if he can stick that closely to Alex's rear bar here, it's going to be very hard to see anything other than him getting another crack at that lead spot through that corner, because you're absolutely right. Alan's got him nailed through it, and I'm not sure whether that's, you know, that Alex has pushed those tyres just that little bit far in trying to hold him off and just doesn't have the grip.
I nearly went for it there.
I tell you what, he's thinking about it.
He nearly thought about it, did Alan Dawson there. He showed the nose just a little bit, just trying to get it right into the side mirrors of that Porsche ahead of him. But here we go, we're about to come across turn 14 onto the pit straight. We're probably going to be about 2 more laps until the end of this race, a minute 42 to go, so potentially 2 more. Maybe this one might be the last lap. Maybe the white flag will be flying out for these guys, but it's a couple more chances for Alan Dawson to go and try and challenge for this lead. So here we go, he's tucked underneath the slipstream. Alexander goes defensive, so not the best line to go defensive there. He had a huge gap. He had a bit of a gap there on Alan Dawson, but he's going defensive. He doesn't need to do that. He just needs to keep it on the racing line. And unfortunately for him, he's going to lose the traction zone again. Oh, Alan has to use some of the grass and a bit more, but he's got a lot closer now. Not as close as he was on the previous lap, but he's got a great run out of turn 3. As I said, turn 3 looks to be Alan Dawson's corner. Fakes left, fakes right, and back to the left-hand side. They're going to start going into the corner of turn 5, almost making contact and taking each other out. This is some great racing, ladies and gentlemen, for round 6 of the MC Motorsport GT3 Championship. And it looks like he's just had a little bobble there. Did Alan Dawson going up towards turn 6, so he's just dropped over 6 tenths. Has that cost him the victory, Jared?
Look, I think it may well have. Now, something that'll be interesting for the stewards to look at there is Alex Wilson coming into that, I think it was that 4th or 5th corner with Alan right up behind him. I'm not sure if I saw a little bit of a move under brakes there, but I suspect, and I don't have the race radio on at the moment, but I suspect there might be a question from Alan Dawson as to whether that was an appropriate defensive move. There wasn't much in it, but it might have been just enough to throw him off.
Yeah, it looked very close there. He did throw the dummy, did Alan Dawson, to try and go from right to left. Obviously, he was trying to catch him out. Very Daniel Ricciardo-esque at Monza, who was trying to do very similar to what he would do, and try to get underneath the head of Alexander Wilson, but he didn't get through it, unfortunately. That has cost him the race victory here, and the race victory is going to go to Alexander Wilson, holding off a mighty defensive job over Alan Dawson. Takes the victory in race 1 for round 6 here at Road America. It is the Porsche 911 in the hands of car 24. Alexander Wilson takes the victory. Alan Dawson in position 2 in the Audi R8. A valiant effort from Alan Dawson in position 2. Almost got the victory. Had 2 laps to have a go at it. Just that little bobble at turn 6 cost him massively. And unfortunately for him, that has kept him in P2. He'll still be happy with the P2, but it could have been a lot better if he had a P1 next to his name. Jacob in 3rd, Scott Stevens 4th, Mitchell Curry 5th, Nathan Bowman in 6th place, Dean Reddit 7th, Miles Bond still holds on to position 8, Joshua Van Trek in 9th, and Simon Larter rounding up our top 10 in race 1 of the round 6 championship here at Road Atlanta. Whew, I need to catch my breath there. That was some absolutely fantastic racing between the Porsche and the Audi. Unbelievable, as we can see that he's on the cool down lap, and what a win that was for Alexander Wilson, taking the victory in his Porsche 911. I believe that's the championship as well, so well done to Alexander to get that second win. Alan Dawson valiant effort here. Man of the match, definitely my driver of the day. If I had to pick a driver of the day for race 1, almost got that move done twice and just couldn't get it, unfortunately. So he'll be ruining those chances, but he might be able to get one up on him in the next race, the reverse top 10 of the round 6 here at Road America. So I don't know about you, Jared, but if it's going to be a 20-minute top 10 reverse, I'm looking forward to it because there are some key contenders that are going to be up towards the front end of this of the grid.
Yeah, not wrong. And Miles Bond and Joshua Van Treek will be getting another crack at that start up front. They will absolutely be looking to make up for the events of the first couple of laps this time around. As we just go back to those results. No, we've lost our results screen. Oh well, look, we can talk through that. It'll be interesting to see what Miles and who was I looking at? Joshua Van Treek.
Yeah, Van Treek. Yeah.
Yeah, they both threw away those early positions with those couple of incidents. And so we'll be looking to see what they do off the front of this. Now, the second race is always interesting. Being a 20-minute sprint, it ends up being pretty chaotic, I think is the best way to describe it. We've had quite a few second races in this championship that have opened up with about 3 or 4 laps of yellow flag racing, simply because of the limited time they run on. There's no pit stops involved. It is a straight-out sprint from beginning to end. So watch this space. It will be very interesting to see if they all survive turn 1. My money is usually on no.
Absolutely. I think when it comes, I think you add the word. I think if you add that S word, sprint race, and especially for a track like this that is very narrow and very tricky to make overtakes stick and clean. It looks to be a little bit of chaos that's going to be happening for sure. So if you want to see some awesome racing, stick around here on the MC Motorsport YouTube channel. We're going to take a little short break before we get ourselves back under green flag racing for the reverse top 10 for race 2, 20-minute session sprint race. Who will take out the victory? We'll join you guys very shortly with a little break, and we'll get ourselves back on the grid as the cars line up for the final time here for round 6 at Road America. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We just took ourselves a little bit of a short break there as the drivers are starting to get themselves ready for this 20-minute sprint. So all the drivers are ready to go, and we do have the current standings, the updated standings from what was an eventful race 1 in round 6 at Road America. We have Miles Bond still holding on to that championship lead, but he's been cut down to just 21 points over Mitch Curry. Matthew Carrick had a little bit of a disappointing race on that last one, so he's actually dropped well off the top 2 in this race. So hopefully we'll be looking.
We'll have to have a look and see what's
20 minutes.
Have a look and see what's happened with the scores there, because I'm pretty sure he doesn't get to hold two lots of positions. Last I checked.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll have a look and see how that goes.
That is very valid.
Have a look and see if our grid is actually ready to go here.
So as we start to get through, so do bear with us, ladies and gentlemen. We are running some great technology here, and it's, obviously, we're slowly starting to get our hands on it. Jared is one for in the world of iRacing. He knows a lot more about this stuff than I do, so he's doing himself a really good job. So we want to do big shout out to Jared Colt for bringing us the live stream and all of the graphics that you are seeing here on the MC Motorsport YouTube channel. Give us a like, give us a thumbs up, and subscribe to MC Motorsport to catch the rest of the MC Motorsport presented by PC, or powered by MCSR GT3 Championship. But we have our grid. The cars are lining up from the reverse of the top 10. So there we see Alexander Wilson and Alan Dawson, 9th and 10th place. As we round down the orders, we've got Hayden Callan, Carl Stevens, Brian East, but we can't go through the rest of the grid because the lights are on. We're ready to go. Well, we're not sure we're ready, but the lights are off and we are green flag racing. Miles has had a horrible start there, so he's bogged the car down. So again, not the best start for Miles Bond. This is the second time in a row that Miles Bond has not been able to get that Ferrari to where he wants it to be in the opening stages of the lap there. He's dropped well down the order, well down the pack there. Just holding on, and he's really struggling. And there's massive carnage there. Oh, this looks to be an absolute horrible fest. And the track is jammed. It's almost jammed. It's almost a reminiscent of a Bathurst 1000 in 2005 at the exit of Griffin's Bend, going up to the cutting. The track was almost jammed there. The cars are slowed down. Was this going to be a potential red flag or just a safety car? We'll find out very soon, but it looks like we have Joshua Van Track in the early stages is leading this race ahead of Simon Lata, Jacob Hughes, Dean Reddit, and Alan Dawson inside the top 5, but not so sure what's going to be happening here, whether they're going to throw out the red flag or if it's just going to be a safety car restart.
Yeah, look, I'm half expecting us to see a yellow flag come out, but so far we're staying green.
We are staying green.
That is surprising.
Yeah,
given how many cars just got taken out. I tell you what, the real winner out of all of that has to be Alan Dawson and Jacob Hughes, who started back in 8th and 9th. And find themselves up into 3rd for Jacob and 5th for Alan. Somehow they've managed to avoid all of that carnage, and they're on track to pick up some great points again in this race.
So we were expecting a lot of carnage for the sprint race, and I did call it right just before we went to break that there was going to be a lot of carnage. We did call it there was going to be a lot of carnage and a lot of chaos in this sprint race, and it has delivered. Obviously not in the best way possible, taking out some key contenders in the championship. Obviously the ones that have just escaped all of that are the key contenders in this championship, Miles Bond and Mitch Curry. But again, Miles Bond having a horrible lap 1 and well down the order, so he put himself in a great position there. As we see some cars running wide there, one of the cars running wide, that is Jacob Hughes that has run wide on the exit of turn 14. He runs well down the order, down to P5 after being in position 3. So lots of chaos.
We are bringing the safety car out. Here we go.
There is a safety car. All right, there we go. So I wasn't too sure on that. We did see green flag for a brief moment on the top left of our monitors, but obviously that basically told us that I believe that everyone had to make sure they get themselves back around the track, maybe speed up a little bit so that way they can catch a safety car.
I suspect what it is, iRacing is a bit funny with hosted sessions like these. A lot of the a lot of the background logic that these graphics rely on, unfortunately, doesn't always play nicely when you're in an environment where the yellow flag is actually decided by the race admins and by race control. So it's one of those things that will get worked out over time. But certainly we'll see them continue, I reckon, for probably a couple of laps here under safety car conditions before they get racing again.
Absolutely. So whilst we try and get some, let's see if we can get some sort of work with our cameramans and see if we can get some sort of action replay of what happened on that opening lap there. It's a lot of carnage that was caused at the exit of turn 1. Obviously cars running wide on cold tires, trying to hold it around the outside. We can see a broken Mustang, a beaten up Mustang on the left hand side of the track there. So that car is going absolutely nowhere. That car is done. And we do have our replay, but this is for an earlier incident earlier on. So we'll keep an eye on what is going to be, what we want. So I believe this is the first safety car that we've actually seen in the MC Motorsport Championship, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, look, it's the first time we've seen the actual safety cars come out. We've had virtual safety cars prior.
Yep.
But yeah, it has been. You have to go way back. There's just cars pulling over everywhere.
Yeah, a lot of cars retiring. Yeah, there's a lot of cars retiring. But here we go. This is the one that we wanted to see. So as we get ourselves a race start, we can see Miles Bond up towards the top right. Top left of the corner. Got a horrible start there. Cars running wide, as we can see there, right behind the trees. Yeah, but it's not just that. It's just what's behind those trees there, behind the forest here at Road America. We just saw a couple of Porsches going side by side with each other. I believe they were the Porsches. They made contact with each other, and that started the whole chaos going on the exit of turn 1 down to turn 3. Here we go. Another much better view here. As we can see here, Simon Lazo, Joshua Van Trek. Joshua Van Trek getting the lead. We can see those two Porsches going side by side as they exit towards turn 1. And there you go.
Scott Stevens just gets turned around there, doesn't he?
Yeah, it was. So Scott Stevens gets turned around, and then we can just see there a lot of other cars getting involved there. And look who's involved in that. Miles Bond. He just slammed the brakes on the car. Didn't want to get involved in that. He came out of that unscathed. That is absolutely incredible.
Hey, he won't be disappointed with that at all, will he?
No, he literally saw that. He saw the car. He saw the chaos. He saw the carnage, and he just thought, "I'm going to slam the brakes. I'm going to be careful." He saw it all unfold in front of him, and he came out unscathed, and he's running up nicely in P12. So, wow, what an opening lap here, ladies and gentlemen. We're nearly at the end of this. We're nearly at the end of this phase of the 20-minute sprint, so we're still under safety car cautions. Like a lot of retirements in this race, unfortunately, with all the damage and heavy damage that the cars have sustained. They've pulled the cars into the garage. It's too much to repair, and they've just retired from race 2 here, round 6 at Road America. But very unfortunate there for the drivers to be coming through, and that pretty much got caught up in all of that. So huge, and I think one of them as well, Alexander Wilson. I don't know if we'll be able to catch an onboard with Alexander Wilson with our replay cameras, but that's the big contender. The winner of race 1 in the 40-minute race is out, and he got caught up in all of that. My goodness. So this throws a whole lot of curveballs in this race as we try to go on board with Simon Lance. There's something happening behind the safety car. No, nothing's happened here yet, unless he ran wide. But here we go, on board with Alexander Wilson. He's right behind Alan Wilson, right behind there in a car 62. Runs it very cleanly here, but then he could just see the Porsches there, and look at that.
Had nowhere to go.
Nowhere to go, and there's all the chaos there with the rest of the field. Absolutely incredible. Horrible way to end your race, unfortunately, for Alexander Wilson. A damaged nose, a lot of bent steering, and you can just see the car there just does not want to turn, even when he's trying to keep it running in a straight line. Look at that. That's absolutely horrible there. So just too much damage there. And look, the lock that he's got on the car just to keep it straight. No, unfortunately for Alexander Wilson, that's an unfortunate end there. The winner of race 1 in the 40-minute race here at Road America, unfortunately, DNFs in the sprint race, and that is going to be huge for him, unfortunately, for him to be down the pack and out of this race.
And this is the thing with a 20-minute sprint. All of a sudden, we're almost halfway through the race, and we've run most of it under safety car. It's happened a couple of times before. I tell you what, you thought that first go at it was frantic. Wait until the safety car pulls off and the team out there realise that they've only got about 10 minutes to run to make the best of what's to come.
Well, it looks like the lights are out on the safety car. Oh no, they're still on. So I always keep thinking that's not an actual safety car. It's an AMG GT4, so it's flashing the headlights just to show off that's a safety car. But obviously with a 20-minute sprint, as you said, it's only going to be the end there. Now the safety car looks like it's coming in at the end of this lap. So, but as they always say in the world of motorsports, safety cars breed safety cars. So if another safety car comes out, then we know why. But it's going to be Joshua Van Trek, the man that started P2 in race 1, fell down the order, made a mistake at turn 6 at the hill, at the top of the hill in the opening lap of the first race, is now finally able to lead the pack through in the race 2 in the sprint race with just over 10 minutes to go. So they're only going to give themselves about 5 laps of racing until the end of this one. When does he pull the trigger? Simon Larser right behind, Jacob Hughes in P3, Dean Reddit, Alan Dawson, Mitch Curry, John Schultz, Roberto Machete. Hayden Norris is the one to keep an eye on. He's made a lot of positions, 13 positions to be exact, from the start of that race, as well as Roberto Machete. But as the cars are filing through onto the pit straight, we're waiting for that green flag to fly by. For this time round, it's going to be it's going to be a 5-lap sprint to the end of this race, and there we go, green flag race, and the flag is down, and we are underway here for round 6 of sprint 2 for the sprint race in race 2. We have Joshua Van Trek, Simon Larter leading the pack ahead of the rest of the field. They're going into turn 1 a lot cleaner than the opening lap. From what we saw, all that carnage that we saw in that opening lap looks to be a lot cleaner now this time by, and the cars are flying through pretty nicely. No one's able to make moves just yet, so it's all about just trying to maintain position, maintain your track position, work with somebody, and try and move up towards the front there, because we're going to be seeing a lot of moves, especially in this sector, coming up towards turn 5. We can see that Jacob Hughes has got a good run on Simon Lanza, throws it down the inside, gets the move done. We can see Dean Redder try and go for an ambitious move, almost made it 3 wide into turn 5. Surely not, Jared. That was absolutely incredible. And as we see there, a lot more incidents behind there. We see Brian East has come into contact with one of the drivers behind him.
It's Hayden Norris alongside him, I believe.
Yeah, hey, so the man that gained 13 positions from all of that kerfuffle is now back down to basically where he almost started at the start of the sprint race. And unfortunately for Brian East, he's lost a few positions next to his name as well. So Dean Reddit, and we can see there Alan Dawson around the outside, Mitch Curry around the outside as well. Can he maintain that position to hold P5? He does. So there's been a horrible lap, this one, for Dean Reddit. Was challenging for P3 by taking in a very ambitious line at turn 5. And he's now, unfortunately, he goes from P4 down to P6, and not best start for him. But Alan Dawson, again, still flying in that black Audi R8. He's going to try and see if he can get himself a double podium, and if he cannot get a double podium, he's going for the win. We can see there in the background as well, Miles Bond looks like he's made a few positions as well. He's moved up into position 9, so starting the first lap in position 3, bogs the car down, dropped well down the order, avoided carnage and chaos that nearly cost him his championship lead at the end of Road America. He's now running in position 9. He's going to be looking to make some inroads on the front runners as soon as he can. But Jacob Hughes has got all the momentum, got a podium in the first race. He's on the podiums here for the sprint race, but he wants more than a P2. He wants that P1.
Yeah, Joshua Van Treek must be watching his mirrors with a little bit of trepidation, particularly with the incidents that started this race off. I'd be pretty worried coming down that hill into turn 1 that someone's going to misjudge that braking. But thankfully, Jacob Hughes got it well under control. And he's just hanging on to the back of Joshua Van Treek, waiting for his opportunity to get past. He's certainly putting the pressure on, and I would expect it's probably only going to be a few more corners before he tries a move.
You can see in the background there, Mitchell Curry's made a move on Alan Dawson. They're still fighting side by side. It looks like Mitch Curry's got that move done. He has, so he's up into P4 now. So he needs to make sure he stays ahead of Miles Bond. But it looks like Miles Bond has dropped down the order again. He's in position 14, so we were seeing him in P9. He's down to 14, and Mitch Curry is holding on to P4. So with only 21 points separating the top two in the championship, this all goes into the favor of Mitch Curry. If he can maintain P4, and if Miles Bond finishes where he sits at the moment, it looks like we're going to be having ourselves a new championship leader at the end of round 6, but it's still early days. We have 3 more laps of racing to go. Anything can happen. As we saw in that opening lap, a lot of things can happen. But the battle for P1 is still raging on between Joshua Van Trek and Jacob Hughes for position 1 and position 2. They're still nose to tail, bumper to bumper, but no moves made just yet, with Mitchell Curry trying to get himself up towards Simon Lata in the Corvette, trying to get the home, trying to get the car built in America by Chevrolet onto the podium for the first time here in the MC Motorsport GT3 Championship. But we can see he's still holding on very nicely there, but that Porsche, as being well broadcasted, is a very, very strong car compared to the Corvette. So watch out for Mitch Curry if he goes to that podium.
One of the other things to note around that championship standing is that although we can have a pretty good look at it as we look at the end of the race and the provisional standings, something we can't account for is the drop round. So it'll be interesting to see just how bad Miles Bond does run this round, and whether it's actually enough for this round to be his drop round and not be counted in the points. So that'll be calculated. Excuse me. That'll be calculated once the session finishes, and we'll have an update on that at the start of our next session. But we should hopefully get a pretty good picture of it at the end, as Alan Dawson tries to put a move on Mitchell Curry. Mitchell defending that inside line. He knows Alan's quick in the out, so expect some more of that from him, I suspect.
Yeah, but it's just turn 3 that Alan Dawson is very strong at.
He's a monster, isn't he?
Yeah, it's just he gets the run out of turn 3. The previous lap he didn't get it right, and that's what gave Mitch Curry the opportunity to get ahead of him. But anytime that Alan Dawson can get behind somebody, he knows he can always find somebody's weakness, and he always seems to find it at turn 3. And I'll tell you what, it's not a bad place to actually have. It's not a bad corner to have a great run and having attack on somebody. As Mitch Curry just runs wide onto the grass there, but just clips it. No harm done on him slowing his car down, but Alan Dawson's got a really good run coming through the kink here as he comes down towards turn 11A and down to turn 12. Can he throw the car on the inside? Will he get the move done on the 89? No, he doesn't. He thinks about it, shows a nose, tries to occupy the right-hand side driver's mirror, but unfortunately doesn't get the move done. But yeah, absolutely, he's a strong driver on the exit of turn 3 onto that back straight. So I wonder if maybe there might be a little bit of a wind direction that might be favouring the Audi, that he might be just getting a really good drive out of turn 3, and he's able to take advantage compared to everybody else, because from what I've seen, he seems to be the only driver that's getting that corner right.
Yeah, and I certainly hope Dean Reddit behind him in the other Audi in the field is taking notes, because to have both of them running that strong through that turn would be a good thing for the competitiveness of this series. It'll be interesting to see if he can get it done here as he closes the gap to within 2/10 of Mitchell Curry, all over the back end of him. And yeah, Mitchell's got to be feeling the pressure at this point.
Not just Mitchell, Simon Lata right behind there. He's got 3 cars behind him that are all very nose to tail with each other. So Simon Lata, as we go on board with Mitch Curry, the man in position 2 in the championship.
As just going to jump forward, sorry. Jacob Hughes has closed right up on Joshua Van Treek as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So that battle pack for P1 and the last spot on the podium is going to be absolutely frantic with 2 laps to go until the end of this race. It was a very short race, unfortunately. We had to spend a little bit of time underneath under the safety car, but it is going to be providing us with a grandstand finish for position 1 and for position 3 potentially. 3 cars fighting for P3 and 2 cars battling for the lead of this race. It's going to be absolutely incredible, so stay tuned if you want to see yourself some great racing towards the end here. Joshua Van Trick got a horrible run there, and that's opened up for Jacob Hughes to have a good run at the kink there at turn 11. See if we can get ourselves back up towards the front there, because I think Jacob Hughes is looking to go for a move down a Canada corner. He's right underneath the rear wing of that BMW. He's gone defensive, has Joshua. Is he going to throw the nose down? No, he doesn't. He shows a little bit of a fake dummy there to Joshua, just to say, I'm here, I'm coming to play with you, and I want to make sure I get that P1 next to the name. I've already got a third, but I want that second step, and I've already got that, but I want that first step. And he's got 1 more lap to achieve that, but he looks to take a little bit of a narrow wide. runs a bit wide, but here we go. Joshua Van Trek has got a much better exit of turn 14. So we have one more lap to go, ladies and gentlemen, until the end of this. Looks like Simon Lata has got himself a little bit of a breathing space over Mitchell Curry and Alan Dawson. And Alan Dawson's going to go for he's going to go side by side into turn 1. Dean Reddit right behind there is waiting to pick up the lollies if these two make contact and they get themselves into trouble. No, that's going to be Alan Dawson right up into position 4. Mitch Curry right underneath the rear wing of the Audi R8 is going to try and get back underneath him in turn 3. He doesn't. He needs to get the run here because this run's going to be crucial. If you don't get the run, I don't see any more chances coming your way, unfortunately. But Mitch Curry just 2 tenths, just over 2 tenths behind Alan Dawson. He's going to try and get that slipstream. He wants to try and get the overlap and at least throw some of the nose down in the car of his car down in turn 5. No, he doesn't. He's just going to have to stick back. And unfortunately for him, that might be his chances done for P4. But I still think P3 is up for grabs because Simon Lata is not really comfortable in position 3. He knows he's got a fast Audi behind him. He's trying to make America proud and get that Corvette on the podium. But Alan Dawson is going to say otherwise as we go on the rear bumper of Simon Lata. Look in that Audi R8 monstering. Pretty much putting the nerves on Simon Lata for P3. Some different lines, some different alternative lines there, but it looks like Simon's got a little bit more traction on the exit of the carousel at the exit of turn 10. I think he might just get away with this, and I'm looking back up towards the front. The gap is closing, and it's going to be a very ambitious move going into Canada corner. Around the outside goes Jacob Hughes. Will he go for the switchback and go for the inside line? He does. He's got the nose in, and they're going to go side by side going into turn 13. Can he hold it around the outside, which will lead to the inside of turn 14? They're both going at it. They're going to go right down to the wire, and it's going to be Jacob Hughes with a last lap move around turn 13, around the outside. Beautiful move by Jacob Hughes, and he's going to take victory here in race 2 of the sprint race for round 6 of Road America. What a finish that was for Jacob Hughes. He takes a P3 and a P1. The round victory goes to Jacob Hughes in car 96, and Simon Lata in the Chevrolet Corvette finishes up in position 3. Gets that Chevrolet this first podium here at America. And wow, my goodness, what a finish that was. Unfortunately there, Mitchell Curry has dropped down to P6. Dean Reddit managed to get a move done on him right at the end there. As we look back at a replay of what we're going to see with some of the moves there, around the outside did Jacob Hughes went on Joshua Van Trek. I saw the timing monitors going down with the deltas, and I wanted to keep an eye to see how close it was, and it was so close at the end of it. What a finish that was, Jared.
Yeah, absolutely was, and unfortunately we've just we've lost our overlays there, but give us a moment while we try to reset, because I'd love to take another look at that pass if we can. It was an absolutely fantastic run from Jacob Hughes to make that pass in what was the last 3 corners of that race. So a well-deserved win, but yeah, just drama aplenty for that race.
Oh, I think it's more than drama. There's a lot of talking points that are going to come out of this race there, especially after what happened at lap 1, turn 1 as well. So, as we always say, as they always say in the sim racing world, you can never win the race in the first corner. And unfortunately, in that first corner, it took out multiple drivers that had contention of winning this race. And I think, unfortunately, for some of the biggest losers in all of that, I think one of them is going to be one of the key contenders in the championship, Miles Bond. I think it's really cost him in the end of this as well. So a day to forget for Miles Bond in that Ferrari 296, and probably a good day for Mitchell Curry in the Porsche 911. He might be taking this championship lead at the end of it all, but we can't take away the fact there of what some great racing we've seen. The race 1 brought us to the edge of our seats between Alexander Stevens and Alan Dawson, and now we're seeing Jared Hughes as well as Joshua Van Trek for the last race on the top step in the sprint race at race 2. So Road America, you have delivered as you always do in the real world and in the sim racing world. What a race that was, and what a finish to conclude round 6.
So we'll take a quick look and see if we can get a bit of an idea of what might have happened with the championship as a result of this. Now, bearing in mind that we haven't pulled the drop rounds from this, but I suspect that what we'll see here is Mitchell Curry jump just past Miles Bond with those results. Still some issues with Matthew Carrick taking up 2 spots, but I believe Roberto McKetty should be in either 3rd or 4th as a result of his finishes in this one. Because Matthew Carrick was certainly a fair bit further down the order.
We didn't really get to see much of Matthew Carrick in that race. It's a very quiet race for Matthew Carrick, unfortunately. We did see a lot of Roberto Machetti. He did get caught up a lot in race 1, and especially in that last one in race 2. But yeah, just not so surprising. Not so much surprises there between those drivers. Obviously, the biggest standouts. Alan Dawson gets himself up into P5. Alexander Wilson gets himself up into P7 as the championship order is still getting changed around. He actually moves himself up into P4 there.
Yeah,
before we get into round 7. Before we get to round 7 next week, next Monday night.
So there we go. The finishing order there. After all is said and done, Alan Dawson and Dean Redder back in 4th and 5th. Following up from Jacob Hughes taking the win, Joshua Van Treek in 2nd, and Simon Larder managing to keep that Corvette on the straight and narrow and holding off Alan Dawson, finishing hard in those last couple of laps.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's done a good job there. Obviously, the Corvette's probably not the strongest car on the grid here. It looked like it lacked a lot around Road America, but he did himself well. I think he was very fortunate that the safety car ran for a very long period of time as well. So because if it was a simple race, I think we probably would have seen that Corvette drop down the order, unfortunately. So it would have been a race to forget for Simon Larter. But it is 2 top 10 positions at a podium to round up at Road America. As we look down the order, is John Schultz in the Ford Mustang, the first of the Ford Mustangs in 7th place, Roberto Machetti in 8th, Ryan Palmer in 9th, and Scott Stevens rounding up inside the top 10. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. What a thrilling race that has been at Road Atlanta. We want to thank you guys so much for tuning in to the live broadcast here at MC Motorsport. If you haven't already, give us a like and a thumbs up here on the YouTube channel. Subscribe if you want to see more of the MC Motorsport powered by MCSR GT3 Championship. If you want to get yourself involved, jump in on the Discord, whether you have iRacing or you have other games of other modes of platform, Gran Turismo 7, Assetto Corsa. We have all the games that can cover you, all of the drivers that are waiting to have some new faces come along in their squad. MC Motorsport is your home for all things racing here in 2024. But on behalf of myself, that was I thought that was an absolutely great race there. Driver of the day for that one definitely has to go to Jacob Hughes on that one. What a move that was around the outside. And I think overall, it was a really good race there for Jacob Hughes to get P3 in race 1 and then the victory with a very sexy move around the outside of turn 13 on the final lap as well. So definitely my driver of the day goes to Jacob Hughes. I want to hear a little bit of the thoughts there on with Jared as well. So any standouts there? Any biggest losers, biggest winners on your end?
Oh, look, absolutely. I'm with you on Jacob Hughes. I think that one's got to make the highlights reel for the season. An amazing finish and really just stuck out till he saw the right move and ended up making it around the outside for the win. It's all you can ask for as a driver. I think certainly in terms of biggest losers, Miles Bond had a horror start to the first race, and then despite looking pretty promising in the second race, basically took himself out in that second race and finished something like 4 laps down on actually possibly even more in the end. So yeah, he's certainly had a rough week for someone who's usually up the top end of those races. So a lot in between, but good to see some other names up front. It'll certainly make the championship a lot more interesting as we get into the last few rounds. We'll have a lot of people who stand to take out one of those top 3 spots, I think.
Absolutely, and we cannot wait to bring you all of the coverage here on MC Motorsports YouTube channel. So thank you so much for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. It's been an absolute pleasure to be broadcasting you this iRacing world here of the GT3 Championship, presented by MC Motorsport. Thanks to Jared Cole for providing us with the stream. So give him a big shout in the comment section below for all of his efforts and all the efforts that he put in to the streaming to bring you guys and ladies and gentlemen this beautiful stream that we have here on the World Wide Web on the YouTube channel. So thank you so much, Joe. We do thank you so much for what you're providing with us, and I cannot wait to do this radio with you again next week.
Looking forward to round 7, Nick. Thanks again, mate.
Absolutely. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of myself, Nick Patasso, and Jared Cole, we'll see you guys for round 7. So good evening, good night, and we'll see you next time.